Welcome in, Sofia. Sofia, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
How are you?
I'm doing fine. Yeah.
Recovering from the tournament this weekend.
Yeah, it was a lot for me. I think it was maybe a year since I made my last competition, so it was a lot, and I think mostly for the head actually.
Yeah, and actually, looking, your last competition prior to this was, of course, the European Championships, which were 11 months ago.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, you're right. Probably 11 months ago. Yeah,
So,
it's a really long time.
really long time, and of course, COVID put everyone behind. So let's start with your performance this weekend. I just mentioned the Henri Deglane. You win with the 7-4 decision over Jakara Winchester, reigning world champion. But coming into the competition, what were some things that you wanted to improve on?
Well, Mostly I think I needed matches because we have of course, the very important Olympic qualifications coming up. So for me, when the competition was adjusted in Italy, moving ahead a couple of months, I was really sad. So I was happy that France was still an option. So I went there and I just wanted to wrestle as many matches as possible. And of course, then it's perfect to go to the final because then I have a lot of matches and to see what I need to work on my way back home in Sweden.
Was your offense something that you worked on during COVID? Because the offense that we saw you put on display at the Henri Deglane was, I'm not saying it's something that we've never seen, but you outscored your opponents 25-4, and 18 of those points came from offensive takedowns. So did you work on your offense in COVID?
Yeah, I think that my style has always been offense, and I think my mind getting into this tournament was to just to wrestle free, like not try to stop myself or just okay, and now I need to see what I really need to work on. So mostly, yeah, just go all out and try to score as many points as possible.
Are you someone, when the entry list comes out, are you someone who looks at that entry list?
Uh, I think I was more before, but now that I'm a little bit older, I try to focus more like what I can do, because that's the only thing that I can do, because I can't decide what my opponents are gonna do. So I think that's the best way for me.
Yeah, focus on yourself. Where did
Yep.
that come from? At what point in your career? Because I mentioned it in the opening, 6 world medals, an Olympic medal as well. So when did you feel that you had become comfortable enough with yourself that you had to stop worrying about everybody else and only focus on yourself?
Well, ever since I was young, I always went into the championship with a high goal, and in wrestling, yeah, you can't be relaxed in any seconds, or you need to be there 100% in every match you do. You can't just think 4 matches ahead, or I just need to okay, now first match and do not 98 or 99%, do 100, because it's really important, especially in a long tournament, because if you can win your first match after 2 minutes, then you're saving a lot of energy for your next matches. So make sure that you're prepared for every match and do your best.
Let's circle back to the start of your career. We asked fans for questions, and a lot of young girls said that you inspired them through the success that you've had, especially coming from Sweden, which was predominantly a Greco powerhouse. And now the tides are starting to turn, and with yourself, your sister, Jenny Franzen, of course, Olympic bronze medalist. You have Hannah Johansson. The list goes on. But let's start back. How did you start? When did you start? And why did you start wrestling?
Well, first of all, it makes me really happy that you say that young girls get inspired, and I wish them all the best of luck, of course. But for me, like you said, we had a long tradition of the good Greco guys, but I think I started when I was 6 years old. But I didn't have anyone in my family or like a brother who was into wrestling. It was just me and my 2 sisters who started. And I think that it was really good for me. I come from a small town called Gällivare up in the north of Sweden, and we had a lot of girls, and we trained really hard, but we also did a lot of funny things outside the mat. So my starting of my career for me was really important, because they were tough. Like we trained really hard, and I had so good sparring partners. I didn't need to go anywhere. I had such a good sparring partners in my hometown, in my own club, and there were a lot of them because, like I said, we had a good time. So people wanted to come to practice. So even if it was hard, it was still very fun. And later we had a great coach, Fariburs Besarati, who moved up to Gällivare. And then we had a great will and willingness to train. And with his techniques, it became quite successfully.
What would you say is the most important thing that he taught you?
Well, I think he made us realize how far we could go, and he didn't accept if anyone made nothing else but 100% in every match. So you could actually go and you could win a tournament, and you could win your final maybe with 10-1, and most of the people would say, yeah, hey, you did great. But for him it was like, okay, so you won, but hey, you lost 1 point. That means you made one mistake, and now we're gonna fix that mistake.
So we'll continue to move on.
Yep.
And we're gonna talk. Let's talk about who inspired you as a young wrestler, being from a small town. Did you have the opportunity to watch the wrestling outside of Sweden, or were some of your inspirations from within the country?
Yeah, I was inspired because we had a few world champs. One of them was Sara Eriksson, and I think she had some great techniques. So she was definitely one of my inspirations growing up. And now she's also the head coach for the Sweden's wrestling team. So that's great.
Yeah, was she a two-time world champion?
Yeah, two-time world champion. That's right.
And actually, we'll get to it eventually, but in 2009, I believe it was 13 years in between her last world title and your first world title. So I guess let's go there now. What did that feel like? 2009, you get to that, you reach the pinnacle of the sport. And 2007 was your first world championships. 2008, you were young at the Olympic Games. 2009, breakthrough year for you. So what did that mean to get your first gold medal around your neck?
Oh my, yeah, that meant a lot. I knew I was in good shape, but I actually made the decision quite late because it was my last year as a junior. So they told me, okay, now you need to choose. You will go to the Junior World Championship, or you will get the chance to go to the World Championship as a senior. So it was a tough decision, but I decided to go to the Senior Worlds, and I'm so happy that I did that. But I think for me, I could just go there and wrestle, even though I wanted to do really good on the tournament, but to wrestle with no pressure, just you're young, and I was hungry, and I did my best in every match. But it was unbelievable. I was so happy.
Do you relive those emotions ever? Just think about, because you're 2007, I mentioned being your first world championships, to look to now. It is 2021, so you've been in this game for a long time. Do you ever look back and think about those moments where it's just too much to explain? Yeah,
I think 2009 and the world title, I would still remember. Like some days I get the feeling from that day. That is definitely one of the days from my careers, I think, that I will always remember.
And I mentioned earlier that you've inspired so many young boys and girls, but one person who you inspired, and I don't even know if you knew this, but we had Vinesh Phogat on the show a couple of months ago. And in speaking with her, I asked her the same question. Who inspires you? what motivates you. And she said you inspired her. And one of the things that she was hesitant to move up to 50 or 48 to 53, and you were one of the main reasons, because she looked at you as one of the biggest threats to her Olympic hopes. So when you hear about that, I talk about young girls, and now to hear this superstar from the other side of the world saying that about you, what emotions does that bring you?
Oh yeah, well, that's amazing, and I wrestled with Nash, and yeah, she's become great and took a huge step these last couple of years. So, oh, that's like a really honor, and I'm so happy that she was inspired by me through her years.
The 2019 World Championships, of course, it's going to be tough to talk about, but it's led you to this point, and I'm sure you've learned from it, and I'm sure you've grown from that loss to Vinesh in the opening round. But we'll quickly touch on the World Championships. You fell in that opening round, but how were you feeling mentally and physically going into Nur-Sultan?
Yeah, I think when I went to the championship, I felt prepared, but at the same time, when I'm looking back to it, I think I might be a little bit too comfortable. But because as a wrestler, you can never be comfortable. You need to always stay hungry and always looking forward and improving. So yeah, just do 100% a little bit more and put that into each practice, because once you're up on the mat, like your opponent, she's also want to win, and she's not just going to give it to you.
Yeah, no one's wrestling the name. That's for sure. Some people do, and it doesn't turn out too well. But we're going to talk about having your baby. And we had, and right now, Jane Valencia, from Mexico, 2021 Olympian, and also, quick plug, Aileen Falcon will be on the show next week, and they both asked, we'll start with Falcon's question. She said, how do you manage being an elite athlete while caring for your child?
Well, first of all, it's not easy.
No.
I'm just going to say that. But I think for me, I was first worried about coming back to wrestling, because I was questioning about how my physique was going to be. But for me, I would say the physique is it's not an issue. It's just as long as you have the motivation, and as long as you have a supporting friends and family around you, you can definitely do it. I just think that the most important thing is that as long as you have the motivation, I don't see it as any problem. And for me, I think it's also made me look a little bit bigger. When I first was wrestling and I didn't have a baby, for me, my world was quite small. Like, my world was wrestling and almost only wrestling. But now as a mother, my world is a lot bigger. So when I'm not on the mat and I'm not on practice, I can also allow myself to relax and to think about something else. So that's a great part, I think, for the recovery, and put your mind into something else, and to realize that there's, even if you win or if you lose, there's also other things that are important.
You just go home and you're mom. It doesn't matter, medal or, and you probably don't know this, but when I was wrestling in America in college, I had my twin daughters. So I know what it's like to try to compete at a high level, not as high as you were at, but also trying to juggle being a parent and trying to also stay motivated as an athlete. So it's truly inspiring. During that point, so you had your baby in 2017?
Yep.
And you took off, so it was January 2017 through July 2018 was that time period where you were off the mat from competition. At any point during that time, did you contemplate retiring?
When I first was pregnant and people was asking me, so what are you going to do with wrestling? And it was after Rio. So, of course, people was wondering, oh, are you going to continue wrestling or not? And my answer to all the people was that, okay, like, I'm not going to say anything and I haven't decided, or I want to wait and see how I feel, because I know like wrestling is not a sport. You do 50%, you do 70%. In wrestling, you need to really put 100% out there, and it's going to be tough. So I didn't decide before I had the baby, but it didn't take long that I started to miss being on the mat. And I came back and I realized that, well, this is what I love. Like, I love to practice. And as long as I enjoy it, then I'm going to keep going.
And you made your return at the Spanish Grand Prix and capture the gold medal. So did that just justify you coming back? Did you say to yourself, I still have it. Nothing changed. As long as I can continue to work, I'll be back to where I was?
Yeah, for me, like my first competition, of course, was a little bit extra nervous. And at the same time, I just feel like, okay, I have a baby and I'm taking some time away from her. So I want to make that time count. So like when I step on the mat, especially in the beginning, I just feel like, okay, I'm not doing this for myself anymore. I'm doing this for me and my baby, so that I can really justify like my time being away. So I really need to do my best. So for me, it was kind of this feeling, but now I feel a little bit more relaxed about it.
You're trying to reach your 4th Olympic Games.
Yeah.
That, and you have the uphill task of just some of these names: Vanessa Kaladinskaya, Olga Horasheva, Nina Hemmer, who you wrestled this weekend, Zenep Yetgil, Ulya Blahina. You're going to have to go through a tough road to get. You have 2 more opportunities: European Olympic qualifier and the World Olympic qualifier. For you, what is the most important thing? What do you have to do to qualify for the Tokyo Olympic Games?
Make no mistakes. Like wrestling is, like you mentioned, there are so many great opponents left, and in 53 kilo there are so many great wrestlers that didn't qualify yet. And you need to have, I think there's so many, so you need to have a really good day on the mat and try to make no mistakes.
No mistakes. I like that. 3rd time was the charm for you, though. Well, I know that you have other things going on today, so I won't keep you for too much longer, but I have to talk about Rio. I was there, and it was one of my favorite moments, seeing you capture that bronze medal, because you realize when you go to the Olympics, you just think about the athlete. But when you go and you see the joy that it brings to those surrounding them, your family, your friends, just to see the excitement from Swedish wrestling fans to not only capture 1 bronze medal, but Jenny Franzen as well captured a bronze. So you two together. First question, can you explain the emotion that you went through after you won that? And second question, what did it mean to have Jenny on your side holding the bronze medal as well?
Well, before the Rio Olympics, we didn't have an Olympic medal for the Sweden women's wrestling team. So, and before someone does it, like the feeling might be like, oh, it's impossible because no one has done it. So we really wanted to prove that, like, hey, even though we're a small country, like we can do this. And when Rennie took the first medal, and I just saw like her tears of joy, and I just felt like, oh my God, like I also like really, really, really want that medal to come home to Sweden with the medal. That would be so cool, and to celebrate with her. But actually, when in the bronze match, and when I step into the match, and I get a fall during the match, and I'm like, when I come up there's tears of joy, but also relief. There's so many feelings behind those tears. as you said, like it was my third Olympics, and I had the medals from the Europeans and the Worlds, and that was like the medal that was missing and that I've been wanted for such a long time. And you don't get many chances. It's like one day every 4th year. So yeah, like this was really my my chance. So like there's so many feelings behind those tears.
What was that night like when you finally achieve a lifelong dream, not only for yourself, but for your country as well? So what was that night like after capturing bronze?
Yeah, I was just so happy. It was the best feeling ever. And we had many friends and family there in Rio. So I met with all of them, and it was really an emotional night. And I think I couldn't sleep for the whole night because I was just up, and I couldn't go to sleep.
Yeah, riding that adrenaline. Let's jump to some fan questions before we get you out of here. We'll start with B. Catherine asks, what are your plans for after wrestling?
Well, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
I think that the problem for me is not that I'm not interested in things. It's like I just think that so many things are fun. So it's just hard for me to pick one. But what I learned about myself is that I really love training. So I probably would get a job in that area, I would say.
Possibly coaching? Do you enjoy coaching?
Yeah, like that's definitely an option. But I'm one of those persons that I do one thing and I do it 100%, or I don't do it at all. So right now it's like even hard for me to think about because I'm into wrestling like 100%.
Christina Anesia asks, what's the difference in your training now than in the previous Olympic cycle?
Well, I think now, when I was younger, I could do a lot more hours on the mat, and my body would recover a lot faster. So now I need to think about like what I do and make sure that every hour I spend on the mat will count, and that it's really meaningful. And I think I had a lot of more technique sessions when I was younger, just to get it in there, like make every move perfect. And now I can focus a little bit more on the quality.
Last question. If you could wrestle anybody, it doesn't matter style, if it was from the 20s, 30s, you name it. If you could wrestle one person before you retire, who would that be?
That's a really good question. I would really like a rematch against Sauri would be great, because we wrestled a couple of world finals, so it would be nice to have a shot once again.
And what would you have to do to beat her this time?
Not to get into her style, and just do what I do best, go when the whistle starts 100% forward.
Well, I want to thank you for joining us. I remember at the Clip and Lady Open in 2018, I tried to get an interview with you, but you were swarmed by wrestlers from all over getting autographs and talking to you, so I had to push that to the side. But finally, 2021, we get it done. So I want to thank you so much for joining. Once again, next weekend, Aileen Rotter-Falcon, who just won the World Cup with a fall over 2017 world champion Yasmin Adar, will be joining us next week. As always, make sure you're following us, United World Wrestling, on all social media channels. Sofia, thank you so much for joining us. Take care.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
Bye.